You did say that you started reading
Mm-hmm.
at an early age. You were a quiet child, and so you had a lot of time to just spend reading books and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I'm just wondering, how did you get introduced to reading books, and what role did your aunt play in that?
Interesting. Yeah, so when we moved from Kericho to Nakuru, as I said, I started living with my auntie. And so my auntie was a teacher at that time, and she was so nice. I remember in her house there was like this big dining table. We would have our dinner, and once we are done, we would wipe the table, and then she'd be like, "Okay, sit down." And then she would give us like storybooks, and she would be like, "Okay, so I want you to read this short story." And yeah, so you would sit down, you'd start reading, and then after that I think by then I had not learned how to read so well, so she did teach me a few things, and then I caught up. And then now after I would read the stories, she would be like, she would come, "You're done. Okay, so tell me, what was that story about?" So you would go on and narrate to her what the story was about. And then she would be like, "Okay, so what was the lesson from that story?" And then I would definitely tell her, or we would tell her what the story, the we were given different storybooks with my brother, so everybody would tell them like what the lessons were for them from that story. And then after you are done, she's like, "Very good," and then she'll be like, "Yeah, now you can go to bed." So I think for me, her cultivating that reading culture, and we did it like every single day, especially on school days. Yeah, so after we left and now relocated and started living with our mother, for me, I was so curious. I just felt like I needed to read. And I felt like at that point I had a capacity to absorb a lot. So yeah, I read and read and read. And I remember at some point, I think because I became a representative of the library at some point, I read books in that library. I read encyclopedia. I read the dictionary. I read everything. I read there's these literature books we do in high school. We call them set books in Kenya. So at that point, I read some books like by Ngugi wa Thiong'o. Like there was this one in high school we did called The River Between. So I read that set book in primary school. I think that I was in either in class 5 or 6. So by the time I'm getting to high school, and that's the book we have for our literature class, I was like,